Everybody, welcome. I'm going to try and keep this as quick as I can keep it, but this should be a follow-up with the article and the worksheet that was done with Getting Rich is Simpler Than You Think. Let's see, let's get started here. And it is, by the way, it's simpler than you think. So let's go through. How's it going to work? By the way, it's not easy, but it's simple. Not easy, but simple. Okay, so there are 3 principles that the article talked about, and I believe in these. Okay, so here we go. Principle number 1, you need some kind of income. You need to start with some kind of money, right? Helps to have income because you're going to want to do these things on a monthly basis. I've got income. A lot of you have income. You need discipline. You need to be able to do something consistently. That's the discipline part. When things get a little rough, you need to still stick with it. That's the discipline part. And you need time. Okay? If we are both starting today, here's what I've got. I've got income, and I can get some discipline. What I have less of is time. Here's what you guys have. You may or may not have income. A lot of you have a job. What you probably lack is discipline. But what you do have in abundance is time. And by time, I mean time for the money to grow. Okay, I've got less time. I had more time 10 years ago, 20 years ago. As I'm approaching kind of retirement age, I'm having less and less time to kind of let money do its magic. But I did start a while ago, so took advantage of that. All right, we are going to talk about the power of compounding. You should have read about compounding. So like this chart over here actually shows you, I'm going to give you a little pointer, right? It shows a couple things. It starts with only $100. So if you start with $100, that's not very much money, by the way, and you just let it sit. And if it earns 10%, 20 years later, it's going to be a long time, 20 years, you'll have over $500, which went up by 5 times. It's not bad. Ideally, you want more than $100 because $500 20 years from now maybe doesn't help you a whole lot, but just gives you an idea. But look at this. What if you can earn 20%? Which again, I don't have a place to earn 20% every year, but boy, look at the power of the difference that it makes if you earn 20. Instead of only $500, you'd have $4,500. That $100 turns into $4,500. You guys would be 38 years old, right? You're 17, 18. So if you were to put $100 somewhere and earn 20%, you'd have $4,500. And if you could do that every month, imagine what that becomes, right? All right, so the power of compounding. Compounding is mankind's greatest invention, says Albert Einstein. I've actually read maybe that quote is attributed to him, but maybe it wasn't really his, but it still was great. And he was a brilliant dude. So we are going to utilize, or hopefully you, are going to utilize systematic reinvestment and accumulation of wealth. So we are going to keep reinvesting, and that is going to lead us to this accumulation, this growth of wealth. It's the idea that your interest earns interest, right? If you have $100, it earns 10%. At the end of the year, you have $110. Now the $110 earns interest, right? So after that, you've now got, that earns now $11 in interest. So the next year you have $121. And it earns, and it's not, you don't just earn $10 every year, or 10% of your original 100. It compounds, it grows. Okay, this is why if you get into a stock plan, ideally probably you're just going to get into just some mutual funds or index funds, and you're just going to keep it simple. You're not going to worry about individual stocks. I know we're playing the stock market game, but you're not going to worry about individual stocks. You would be you're reinvesting dividends. It's called a DRIP program. Dividend reinvesting plan. I've seen it, dividend reinvesting program, but either way, it's a DRIP. And so some stocks and mutual funds and index funds, by the way, will pay dividends, right? We talked about dividends last time. And so, if you own a share of Apple, it pays $1.25 or so in dividends. So in one share, they pay you $1.25 at the end of the year. If you own 10 shares, they pay you $12.50. Doesn't sound like much, but when you start to get more and more, and so that little chunk of dividend, you can get so it buys more shares of Apple. It's going to buy a little fraction of shares. If you get paid $1.25 and Apple is $125 a share, you're only going to be able to buy like 0.01 shares. But that'll grow it slowly, right? At the beginning, it's really slow. But then as time goes on, that gets more and more because now you've got 7 share, you've got 1.01 shares in, and that earns a little bit of dividend, and it grows. So you're going to want to look into, and I have all mine do this. All my shares of stock and all my mutual funds I have on a drip plan, and I set it up through E-Trade, and it just reinvests. So I don't worry about getting the dividends. So some stocks might pay me, $10 or $12 or $8 or $22 like every quarter, every 3 months, and I don't need that $12, right? So that $12 just buys more shares of whatever company or whatever mutual fund that is. And so now I own a few more shares that quarter. And then the next quarter, they pay me another $12, $13. And then I buy more shares. And so over time, that's compounding, that's growing. And so I own a few more shares, and they pay me a little bit more dividends than they used to pay because I own more shares or portions of shares. You can actually buy portions when it's a drip plan. They'll buy 0.01 shares. They'll buy 0.27 shares. It's hard to do that when you're just buying shares of stock. Not all companies will let you buy fractional shares, portions of shares. Okay, so that's a drip plan. There's something called the Rule of 72. Rule of 72 is a trick. It's a way to estimate. It's a way to estimate how long something takes to double its value. Some people might have environmental science. Environmental science used to use this for like how long populations will take to double. So if India is growing at 3% per year, then how long until India goes from 1.3 billion people to 2.6 billion people? And what you do is you take number 72 and you divide it by the interest rate. And for my example of India, you wouldn't divide it by 3% or 0.03. You would divide it just by 3. Okay. So here's another example. If you're earning 2% in a bank account, by the way, going back to the 72 divided by 3, that's 24 years. So it takes 24 years to double. So the question is, if you earn 2%, and how long until that your $1,000 investment becomes $2,000? It's going to take a while. So you take 72 divided by 2, and that means 36 years. It's going to take you 36 years for your 1,000 to become 2,000 at a 2% rate, right? So that's slow. But what if you earn 9%? Well, remember, 9%. The stock market has averaged about 10% per year over the last 100 years. And so if you could earn 9, what about then? How long until that 2% or till that 1,000 becomes $2,000? Come on. And it's only 8 years, right? That's relatively short period of time. I know in your lifetime that's a long period of time, but it's a relatively short period of time. And then, by the way, so over the course of 8 years later, it would then that 2,000 become 4,000. Now we're at 16 years. 8 years later, that 4,000 becomes 8,000. Now we're at 24 years. 8 years later, that 8,000 becomes 16,000. Now we're at 32 years. Remember the the 2% rate. You went from 1,000 to 2,000 in 36 years, and at 9%, you can go to 16,000 in only 32 years. So it becomes this exponential compounding that is super, super powerful. What if you're in 12%, which is like the small market or small company stock average is about 12%? Well, now it's only 6 years. 72 divided by 12, 6 years. So in 6 years, your money doubles. That's a lot shorter than 8. Once again, by 36 years, it would have doubled 6 times. It would have gone to 2,000, and then 4,000, and then 8,000. That's 3 times. And then 16 would be 4 times, and 32,000 would be 5 times, and 64,000 would be 6 times. So if you earn 12% as opposed to 2%, where 2% only becomes $2,000, 12% becomes $64,000 for that same investment over the course of 36 years. And once again, 36 years from now, you guys are going to be 54, 53. It's basically a teeny bit, kind of a lot, but a teeny bit older than me. Okay. So there's a little, once again, compounding chart. If we were in class, I would have you do a whole worksheet on it, but it kind of shows you if you start with $10,000 and you earn these interest rates, what happens? How does your money grow? So it tracks all the way up to 48 years. Once again, 48 years for you, you're talking you're 65. That's retirement age. If you're able to put $10,000 in right now, which I grant is a lot of money, and if I earn 12%, you'd have $2.5 million. Relatively not a tough way to get that kind of money. If you only earn 6, you'd only have 160. which is way better than if you earn 1.5. And remember, once again, how much money is your bank account earning right now? 0.05. Not 1.5, 0.05. Your money's not going to grow at all at 0.05. Like your 10,048 years from now is going to be, $10,040. It's not going to be much. I don't know if it's 10,040. I made that up, but it's not going to be much. It's basically doing zero. Basically won't change. And we know that inflation. We know that prices change. We know prices rise. We know historically that the United States has seen about a 3% per year inflation rate. 3%, which means if you go to this one, what costs us $10,000 today, 40 years from now is going to cost us 40. So if you're only earning 3, you could buy the exact same amount of stuff. Like what's worth 10 today is going to be worth 40 in 48 years. Like you can't buy it. You're not any wealthier. You're at the same spot you were at. Whereas if you can at least double that and earn 6, okay, now you got 160. So what cost you $10,000 your first year, you now got 160, which it's going to cost you 40. So you can still buy more things. You could still get more stuff. That's called the real rate of return, your real rate. All right. Another concept they went over, something called dollar cost average. This is what you guys should all be doing, right? Most of us don't have just $10,000 to plop down, but you may be able to come up with $100 a month, $100 a week, $50 a month. You may be able to work your way towards that. So dollar cost averaging is continual investment. No, but just keep plugging away. The market has a bad month, you're still buying stocks. The market has a great month, you're still buying stocks or probably a mutual fund or index fund. But continual. And that's why the way what a drip system is. When you're reinvesting your dividends, you're buying shares of stock at whatever the price happens to be on that day. And so that's a form of dollar cost averaging. Okay, but it's continual. So whether it's every month, every week, every quarter, every year, I would suggest every month. I would suggest you pull money out of a savings account, checking account, and you put it into an investment account. Probably starting off with like a retirement account, but it doesn't have to be retirement. It doesn't have to be money you're going to wait 40 years for. It can be money that you want to wait 5 years for, 10 years for, but you want to systematically save. Okay. So what happens if it's a down market? If we had like back in, March, April of this year, when the market just crashed 20, 30, 40%, it fell in like the month of March. March is a really bad month. Everyone's worried about, the pandemic and a lot of uncertainty. And so the stock prices really took a hit, but they started to bounce back by April. By the middle of April, it was like kind of like a 4 to 6 week hit. Well, during that month, some people freaked out and they wanted to sell, but that would have been a great time to buy, right? And if you're dollar cost average, you're automatically doing it. You're going to buy when it's cheap. It's like buying on sale. Who doesn't like a sale? You guys love sales, right? When you go to the store, something's on sale. That's when you want to buy it, not when it's regular price. And so when the market is falling, like I've got the long-term view. So if the market has a bad year, I don't really like seeing my account drop. But when I'm buying every month, so every month they pull money out of a paycheck and we're investing in index funds and mutual funds. When that buying is occurring, I'm buying cheap. I'm buying when prices are on sale. And so what it allows you to do is buy more shares. So I can buy more shares, right? So I'll show you a little chart here in a second. And in the up market, you're not going to be able to buy as many shares. You're buying when it's more expensive. Therefore, so if I'm putting $100 a month in, I can't buy as many shares as I could have bought when it was cheaper, because I'm still putting the same amount of money in. But the good news is my overall count is rising, right? I can buy fewer shares that month, but what my investment is going up. And so at the end of the day, we want our investment to increase, right? And so, but the point is, when you dollar cost average, you don't worry about the now. You don't worry about the prices today. When the market drops, great, I'm buying more. When the market goes up, great, my investment overall is going up. That might not be the case if I need the money next week, next month, next year. I might be worried about that price, right? But if it's 5, 10, 20 years from now that you need the money, there's going to be ups and downs and dips in the market. So you don't worry about it. So it's dollar cost averaging. And I'll show you this chart. So here's a chart. So you can see if you invest $200 a month, $200, $200, $200, that's your investment. Let's say the price, let's say it's a mutual fund, price is $20. That means you can buy 10 shares, right? And I've got $200. I haven't gained or lost anything because I just bought it. The next month, let's say it's a bad month. The price drops to $10. It was 20, now it's 10. Oh no, well, that's bad news for my initial this investment because that's going to cut in half. However, this month I get to buy more. Look, I get to buy 20 shares. Woo, 20 shares, which means I now have a total of 30. I had my original 10 and I added 20 more. Now I got 30 shares of stock. I've invested $400. Unfortunately, I've lost money. I'm down to three. I'm down. My value is $300, even though I just put in 200. Why is that? Well, last month when I put in 200 and that price got cut in half from 20 down to 10, those shares are only worth $100 now because their price is cut in half. So I lost $100. Ouch, that hurts. But remember, I was able to buy 20 shares on buying on sale. Let's say the next month, and this is really extreme, but let's say the next month goes up to $25. Ooh, that's a great month, right? It was 10, now it's 25. So I can only buy 8 shares, right? 8 times 25 is $200. I invest $200. I can only buy 8 shares. Now I have 38 shares. I've invested $600. Okay, but so my total value now, what's it worth? Well, those 38 shares times 25 is $950. Each share is $25. I own 38 shares, $950. I've actually made $350. Why? Because I've only put in $600 of my own money. It's now grown. I'm up 58%. Let's say the next month's a bad month again. I'm down to $15. Ouch. They all were 25. Then these 8 shares I bought at 25, I've definitely lost money on. But I could buy now 13.33 shares. I could buy more shares. So now I have 51.33. Okay. I've invested $800. Unfortunately, it's only worth $750 or $770. I've lost $30 on my $800. Why? Well, because that's a low price. $15 is less than what I had here. But so I lost 4%. But what if the next month's another good month? $25. I can buy 8 again. I now have 59.33. I've invested $1,000. But look at that. Those 59.33 shares are worth $25 each. That's $1,483. I've made 48%. I'm $483 ahead of my $1,000 that I put in. But the idea is that when prices go down, you buy more. When prices go up, the stuff that you all those cheap shares you bought are now worth way more, and so you're making more money. Okay, so if you do this month after month, you don't get these kind of huge fluctuations like I kind of showed here. You're going to get more gradual, but the idea is if you got a bad year or two, you're just buying additional shares. You're buying more and more, and then when the good year happens after that, all those shares you bought for cheap are now up in value. Dollar cost averaging. So that's what I do every month. They pull money in my paycheck. All right. How do we look at risk? We look at risk by, when do you need the money? If you need the money 20, 40 years from now, 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now, your overall risk in the market is relatively low. It doesn't that there's no risk. I don't want to say there's no guarantees in life, right? None of us have that crystal ball. But given the time frame, the stock market has shown over the last 100 years that it is a gradual climber. Now, there may be a dip, and it may go up, and it may dip, but the general trend is up, 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 up. Okay? And so there's not a ton of risk on the long term. On the short term, 1 to 5 years, that's a little more risky. Like if you need your money 1 to 5 years from now, you're going to want to be a little leery of too much money in like pure, especially individual stocks. There's risk there's risk it may be down, but even then, like 5 years, there's not a lot of 5-year periods where at the end of 5 years you really lost a significant amount of money. 1 to 2 to 3 years, yeah. 5 years, you can. There are 5-year periods. We can find them. Don't get me wrong, but there's way more 5-year periods where at the end of 5 years you're up and not down. Okay, but the other risk is I've mentioned inflation, right? If you're too safe, if all your money is just sitting in savings accounts or even bond funds, well, no, we haven't talked about bonds yet, but bonds are safer. You're going to be losing out on inflation. In a regular savings account, you're really losing out. Like I said, 0.05% is way worse if that's your growth in a savings account. Even 1% growth in a savings account, if inflation is closer to 3% on average per year, you're losing. You're basically even though you got more money, it could buy less stuff, and so you're losing out. So there's something called the real rate. So if you're earning, say, 5%, which sounds decent, But if inflation's 3, you're really only earning 2. It's a slow growth. That's not great. You got to beat inflation. So if you're looking long haul, you got to be able to beat inflation. And savings accounts lose to inflation every year. You're losing to inflation. You're having less real money at the end of the year than you had at the beginning because prices are rising. Okay? Inflation eats away. You got to beat inflation. Okay? What holds us all back? I would say just overcoming that initial getting started. Just inertia. Like you're sitting and it's just hard to get going. Like getting on the website and opening the account. That's what holds people back, is just the beginning process. That's a lot of it. Fear is one. Like a lot of unknown. Most of you still don't know what the heck you're doing, right? And I would argue, open that account, put your money in especially if it's a long-term account, especially if it's like an IRA, which we'll talk about later, retirement account, slap your money in a S&P 500 index fund or index ETF, which is on one of those videos I was showing the other day. And just track the market and just put your money in there and get it started. $100 a month, $50 a month, $200 a month. What can you afford? If you got a job right now, you're making $500 to $1,000 a month. And if you're not paying your expenses, you can afford to set aside $50, $100, $200 a month. Probably wouldn't really miss it. If you got bills to pay, that's different. Fear of the unknown, fear of what the market's going to do, fear of I don't know how to do this. That would be one thing. Lack of patience. I want it now. A lot of us just want the money now. Oh, I can't afford to give up that $100 a month this year, but I need that now. I think you'd find that you wouldn't notice the difference. If you made it automatic, it just pulled out, just like your checks are never the same amount. One check period you work 32 hours, the other period you work 24 hours, the other period you work 47 hours. Your check is a different amount. You just kind of live on what you got. My take is if you just made it automatic, and we'll talk about that in a second, you wouldn't really miss it. Don't know where to start. We're going to give you where to start. I've already given you some ideas. Okay, automatic. Ready? This is the absolute key. So when I talked about I've got discipline because I made it automatic. If I had to submit money every month, first I have to remember to do it. Second of all, I have to go, can I afford to put that $200 in, that $400 in? Maybe not this month. But if you make it automatic, it's easy. It's easy. It just happens. But you got to set it up. You got to overcome inertia. You got to get in there, open up that account, set it up, transfer $100 from my checking to my investment account. Okay? Automatic. If you get to do it from paycheck, great. If you can do it from a checking account, great. But this is the key. If you don't make it automatic, it won't happen. It just won't. Okay? Choose mutual funds to track the market. Once again, S&P 500 index fund, total market fund, something called VTI. Look at it up, VTI. It's a Vanguard total index fund. The total stock, the entire stock market, all in one mutual fund. All the money that pours into that just buys shares of the entire market. Don't be diverse. Don't be all in silver, because at one point I put some money in silver, like a silver mining company, put like $3,000 into it, and it's now worth like $5. I bought it like $1.24 a share, and each share now is like 0.06 shares or something, some stupid number. So, but be diverse. And by the way, if you take the whole stock market, that's diverse. That's the whole market. As opposed to just saying, I think Tesla's going to keep doing great. Put all my money in Tesla. Risky. It's risky. Not that, it would have been great a year ago. We made 500%. But to put it in today, I don't know. Is it going to go 500% again? Kind of unlikely, I think. I'm maybe going to sell my Tesla. And you can either get an advisor, or just do it. There's so many ways to do it yourself now, especially if you just keep it simple like that. Wait till you have more money before you get a stockbroker or a financial advisor. Or if your parents have one, just get on their plan. Hey, mom, dad, you got a stockbroker? Financial planner? I want to open an account. If you're under 18, you'd have to get a parent to sign off. If you're over 18, you're an adult. You can do it this afternoon, today. Okay. Here are some websites you can use. I set my son up with a Betterment account. Betterment is Betterment and Wealthfront both are robo advisors, where they automatically, based on your age and what your risk factors are, risk not meaning your health risk, but like how risky you want to be. They will set you up when you need the money. They'll set you up these accounts that are based on your age and when you need the money, and they're more aggressive when you're younger, and they become more conservative and they more bonds, things like that as you get older. E-Trade, Fidelity, Ameritrade. There is a how to get started investing link I've given you here. I've got this Nerd Wallet, which I've given out before. There I am, but I'll show you. We're about to wrap this up. Let's check it out. Come on, Nerd Wallet. There we go. So I showed this. I gave a link before on this, but now it's in the slideshow, which I'll give you access to. Here's some stock brokerage. Merrill Lynch. There's E-Trade. Once again, I've got an E-Trade account. There's Ameritrade, SoFi. They've got the new Ram Stadium, which charges, which is pretty sweet. You can see no money per trade. They're all mostly 5 out of 5. There's a few more down here. You can view them all. But you can open an account right from here. No account minimum. You can just click on this link and it'll take you. Ally, Fidelity, Charles Schwab is kind of a known good one. There may be a little cash bonus. I don't know. Ally Invest, you might get a little $50 bonus if you get a deposit that qualifies. There's a few that might hand you a little bit of money. There was a video watched about Robinhood, which is not on here, but Robinhood, you get a free stock if you sign up, like a share of Ford for $7 or whatever it is. So there's all kinds of options out there. It just takes a little bit of investigating, but you can just click on that, and open your account. You need your social security number, you need your address, you need a link to a checking account. If you don't have a bank account, get a bank account. You could probably just get one through E-Trade, but some of you got to get money there. You got to transfer money there. So usually it's from go down to Bank of America or Wells Fargo, or I do Ceslock Credit Union. And so those are all options. All right. I believe my tab's open here. I believe that's my last page. Yes, it is. So that's it. Start early. Make it automatic. Dollar cost average. S&P 500 index funds, mutual funds, track the market. If you want to get risky, take some individual stocks, but I would make that a small part of your play, not the entire part of your play. And just get her started. We'll talk later about what a retirement account is and different types. Generally, I'd recommend a Roth IRA if you want to look that up, a ROTH IRA. But I would have an account that you can access, called like an investing account that you can get money out whenever you want. And I would have a retirement account that you really can't get money out very easily anyway until 59 and a half. So that's a ways away, but man, your money will grow. We'll talk about that at another time. Hope you all are doing great. And ask me questions, email me if you got more to ask. And that's it.